to Sew, a podcast about sewing machines, sewing history, and sewing culture in the past and present. I am your producer and co-host, Aradia, daughter of your main host, T.R. Kelly, who is back. Thank you so much for your patience while we were away. Thanks also to my Hot Nuance Book Club co-hosts, Allie and Bree, for letting me borrow that episode for filler the last 2 weeks. I hope you found a new title to read in all that chatter. But now we are going back to sewing machine trivia. And we are here today to talk to you about trade languages. Specifically, the trade language of our home region, the Pacific Northwest. Chinuk jargon, or Chinuk Wawa, composed of a combination of local indigenous languages and colonial European languages, which was peaking in use during the 1880s. And most specifically, we play with composing new words for sewing machines and putting them into a sentence. This language is embedded into local place names and other terms that we use, and TR specifically has been interested in it for a while, me for a lesser period of time. So we figured why not, share what we know with you, our audience. Keep in mind, however, that we are not exhaustively well-versed in this history or language, not by any measure of the imagination. We are by no means telling you a real etymological story about a term that actually got used. Rather, we are playing in a historically informed sandbox, because it sounded fun. And on the subject of historically informed, during the episode, our historical setting section, we actually weren't sure at the time when the railroad came to Seattle, because that probably was when the first sewing machines would have been introduced to the region. We were using that as a proxy, but we didn't actually know the date. I looked this up online while I was editing this episode, and according to trainmuseum.org, the Seattle and Walla Walla Railroad broke ground in May 1874, and the first railroad depot in Seattle was in operation by 1880. So, very much during the period in which Chinuk Wawa was in its most widespread use. We don't know what the correct answer is to the question of what is the Chinuk Wawa word for sewing machine, but it does seem quite possible that such a word or phrase was coined. And if we ever do come up with a definitive answer that's historically grounded, we will totally update you. All right, enough caveats. Let's get into the conversation.
Hello, Used to Sew. Welcome back. We've been gone for a while. I want to thank my co-producer, Radia, for filling in our missing slots there. We had a little family health emergency we had to deal with, and all is well. So we're going to get back into the podcast here. Looking forward to a great year of awesome topics covering, again, Radia, what is our 3 pillars of sewing goodness?
Sewing history in general, sewing and retail history through your lens of selling for Singer in particular, and how to deal with fast fashion as a massive problem that we're all swimming in.
Yeah, so sewing machines and their history, my experience in fabric and sewing machine retail, and the terrible state of today's clothing reality, which is fast fashion. Like we heard in the sewing machine song, people just don't sew much now. They get the clothes from factories. Just touching, that was our sewing machine song episode, if you want to hear where that came from. Also, we recently did an episode about retail fabric fail, where Joann's stores were closing a lot of stores. Well, just this week we've learned they're closing all their stores. The entire chain is going out of business. And all the way. So I rode over to my local Joann's yesterday just to check it out. And there's no big blowout signs or anything like it hasn't filtered down to the sales floor yet. But as always, I just walked in and looked at the store. It's about 25% fabric, and about 25% of that is garment fabric. And most of that is novelty fleeces and Disney prints and things like that. I could not find a bolt of denim in that store.
Wow. Like the most basic working fabric, denim.
No denim. A lot of things are already sold out, and there's little pegs on there that I know from my retail days that means don't reorder this because they're just getting down. But once they start actually selling things like crazy, who knows? So I am walking around in the store, and I bought this jacket that I wanted some better buttons for. So I thought, well, as long as I'm here, I'll just see what they got. A, they didn't have 5 of anything that matched, and B, the little cards of buttons were $5 a piece for 2 buttons. 2 big metal buttons. I said, oh, no. Let's take Eustace So's advice and head on over to the local thrift. And it's a thrift that I don't like to shop at because I don't like their policies, but they did have a big, clear jar of buttons. I immediately thought of you, Aradia.
Yeah.
How much fun we have sorting buttons. And so I bought it for $4.
A whole jar of buttons.
I was sitting there last night sorting them out, thinking I've got about $1,000 retail if I was to card these all up and sell them. Back when I did work in the store, that was one of the most expensive per square foot areas of the store was buttons and ribbon of all things. So anyway, yeah, the store, oh my God, the line of people waiting to get their fabric cut. And they did have a sign saying 1 yard minimum. That's a new thing. There's a cute African-American dude in there shopping for patterns. I sat down next to him. And of course, like typical fabric store stuff, what are you making? It's great. He was making a nice tailored jacket. Very cool. I told him about the podcast and gave him a card. One of my sewing machine repair cards, but I wrote used to sew on the back.
Oh, very fun.
Yeah, so that was a very confusing experience. And then I went over to that thrift store after I snagged my buttons. I thought, well, I'll take a run through the fabric and the clothes. I'm looking for wool. I'm looking for some more wool. I could not find a wool garment anywhere in the store.
Oh.
Not anything. Not a wool blanket, not a wool sweater in the menswear section, not a wool skirt. I found a lot of wool acrylic blends, wool and spandex, but no pure wool. In fact, I would say most of that store was really recent fast fashion, and it's junk.
Damn.
Just junk. So again, if you're looking for good thrift store fabric scores, don't go to the national chains. Go to your local, like Humane Society or Junior League or something like that. And a lot of people on the sewing machine groups are foaming out about, oh my God, where am I going to buy fabric? Joann's is closing. So yeah, the big shakeups in fabric retail. Stay tuned as we walk you through that and tell you, again, thrift stores, but sometimes thrift stores aren't the place. So
complicated.
I'll tell you some of my favorite online retailers in a later episode. But today, I want to go back, way back to the Pacific Northwest of the United States, the states that are now Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and British Columbia up in Canada. We're talking the land that Lewis and Clark came out to in 1803 and checked out the people that were there. And pretty soon, lots of people were checking it out. And the local natives had a trade language already. There were so many nations in that area, and they all traded, so they had to have a trade language. Very simple, my horse, your horse, me give you money, I don't know if Europe had a language like that, but this area of North America had a trade language. So when European explorers and colonists started showing up, they learned the language too, and some of the new people's words got incorporated into the existing trade language because that's how trade languages work. So we're talking about, what language is this? It's called Chinuk Wawa, or Chinook trade jargon. A lot of place names in Oregon and Washington you can trace right to this. If you ever wondered what Tenas Lake means, Tenas is Chinook for little lake. Tokati is a golf course and a beach. It means beautiful. So, ooh, what a transition. When the first Europeans showed up in this area, was actually in like the late 1700s. Bruno de Heceta and some of the Spanish and Portuguese explorers, I think. And then Vancouver and his guys, and then Lewis and Clark came overland. The sewing machine had not yet been invented. Now, this is important. Sewing machine's not invented, so we don't need a word for that. Because in a trade language, when people meet and they have to decide on a word for something, what is this? What is this thing? Chinook jargon consists of about 4 or 5 different native languages, plus French, plus English, plus Hawaiian, and Spanish or Portuguese. So it's a mixture of all kinds of languages. And in some of the words, you can see that the native languages didn't have some of the sounds that European languages had. So some of the words get mutated a little bit funny. So like,
Sure.
when you want to say a long time ago, you say antiquity. Well, doesn't that sound a lot like antiquity?
It kind of does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very small vocabulary, this language. Only 500 words, I think.
Because it's a trade language, and so it's limited by what you need to talk about in the context of trade.
Exactly. So there's words for like, plates and forks and horses and houses and all the things that people encounter. Hey, I want to buy your boat, Oops, don't move that. Are we recording again? Yes, we're back. Are we back? Okay, so back to the Chinooks. So here comes the white dudes. And I'm saying white because whatever. Europeans. Here they come, sailing up in their ship. Uh-oh. Well, we have canoes here in this area, but we've never seen a ship. What's that big white thing on top? It's a sail. So that was the word, because this is the first time the people have seen the thing. Nobody has a word for it. We'll use sail because that's what we learn, right? First word, first in place. Well, the word sail came to mean all fabric.
Ah.
And if you want colored patterned fabric, you want zumsail. So you go to your dry goods store.
Zumsail.
Zumsail. Scissors. Scissors are here. Oh, wow. That's something the natives hadn't seen. Scissors. Lacizo.
Lacizo. That sounds Spanish.
It could be Spanish or French. Don't know. La. You get
Sure,
lacizo.
sure.
All one word. They don't make it lacizo. It's lacizo.
Lacizo.
Thread. We have never seen thread before either. Okay. Capite.
Capite.
Needle. We've never seen steel needles either. Needle is tipshin.
Tipshin.
Now, I don't know if that was the word for original bone needles, that then it's just like, oh, now here's a metal one. It's also a tipshin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that word might have been one of the native words.
Right.
Pins. Quequians. Don't know what that is. Okay, now, here's some funny ones. A shirt. R is one of the sounds that does not occur in the Northwest Coast native languages. Just doesn't. It's a non-rhotic languages, no R's. Shirt is shut. This one is really funny. Pants, sacalex.
Sack of legs.
Sack of legs, right?
Sack of legs. Oh, that's funny.
Sacalex. So I want some tumtail mamuk sacalex. I want colored fabric to make pants. So tumtail mamuk is to make or to do. It's like this all-purpose verb. If I'm going to fix your pants, nika mamuk kloshe sacalex. I make good your sack of legs. Okay, so all that's fun, but what about sewing machines?
Yeah, that's a more compound concept.
What do you do when you see a thing that you've never seen before? You have to make a descriptive term for it, a word. So I would say, sewing machines were invented and in use by the 1860s, pretty much. And there was definitely plenty of European activity going on in Puget Sound at that time. And so, of course, a sewing machine probably would have shown up in one of the shipments on a ship that had come around the Horn. I don't know when the railroad came to the Seattle area, but it would have been after the 1860s and Transcontinental Railroad. So anyway, here comes the train into the train station, or the ship coming on in. They didn't have horns, or I'd do a great ship horn noise. And here comes this new thing. They unbox it. And of course, there's lots of native people there at the, people sort of mixed a lot more in the Northwest than a lot of other places.
Mm.
So what's this thing? It's Hayak chick chick tipsin. Fast wheel needle.
Fast wheel needle. I mean, that is an incredibly descriptive way of summing up a sewing machine.
I mean, I don't know that that's what they call it, but if I was a person and I was going to describe this thing, I went through my Chinook jargon. It's like, what would I call this? You could probably start calling it something even bigger than that. Hayak chick chick tipsin la tab la pi, which is a fast wheel needle table feet, right? So this is a sewing machine, treadle sewing machine. La pi, your feet, which is French, lapide.
Okay.
Right? So that's a French one. La table, that's a French one too. The French Hudson Bay Company was much more present before the Englishmen, who were called Bostons. Boston.
All
Bostons. That was Americans. Bostons were Americans. British were King King George. So here comes the fact that this long name for this thing, but as humans invent a thing and they have a great word for it: automobile, telephone, car, phone. Things get shortened. The shortest words in any language are the ones that are used all the time.
Right.
Me,
yeah.
You, food, car, cat, dog, house, right? The longer it takes to say a word, probably the more new it is into the language or the more complex of a thing it's trying to tell us.
Sure.
So from going to table feet, heavy metal, fast needle wheel, right? Because when you got back to the village and I saw this thing. It was a table with a wheel and you made it with your feet and a needle, so you would use all the words, right? But as this thing becomes more and more common, now what do you call it? I think I would call it chick chick tipsin, wheel needle.
I like that. It's cute. Chick chick tipsin. It rolls off the tongue.
It sounds like a sewing machine, right?
It does. It is very onomatopoeic.
Yeah, so chick chick is wheel. Anything with a wheel is chick chick, right? So even a car would be a something chick chick. But they hadn't seen a car, of course. And then needle, tipshin. So chick chick tipsin.
Wheel needle.
Wheel needle.
I like it.
And maybe it would just wind up being called something else. I don't know if that language had had a chance to evolve even farther. But right now, there is a bunch of nerds who speak it, and there's a lot of native nations here in the Northwest that offer instruction, and they're bringing it back. The language never died. There's a lot of places up here named that, and people still say. I mean, when I grew up, when you wanted to talk about somebody who was a little too big for their britches, to use an English idiom, hi ass muckety muck. Oh, he's such a. You heard that?
Oh, yeah. I've totally heard that before. Yeah. Yeah, hi-ass muck-a-muck. Or muck-a-muck.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
That's Chinook. Hi-ass means important or big. Muckety muck is food, so the guy who sits at the head of the table is the hi-ass mucky muck. Well, we take it to mean he's like some kind of self-important boss, right? And out here, people talk about out in the sticks. Sticks was the word for forest, woods, sticks. Anything with wood is stick, but sticks is the forest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I totally use that phrase all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. And then, like I said, lots of our local names around here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it was just fascinating to me to think about how would a culture that hadn't seen a sewing machine make a name for it. So maybe they did actually call it Soshin or something after it was around for a while, or Singer. It might have probably
could have just been called a Singer.
Oh my gosh,
with a lowercase s, just Singer.
I have read that in many cultures all over the world, which we'll get to when we get to Singer's international stuff, that is the word for sewing machine, Singer, even if it isn't. Sort of like Levi's, Kleenex, Coke,
Sure.
Singer was the generic term, and those sounds do occur in Chinook, so they might have called it,
Well, not the R, though. It would have been like Singa or something.
Singa. You're right. So it would be Nika Mama Kloshi Singa. I fix your sewing machine. Nika, that's me. Mamuk, fix, do, cloche, good. I fix good singer. Nika Mamuk cloche singer.
That's fun.
Now you can speak Chinuk Wawa with the rest of us Northwestern fish-scented sewists.
Ha, that's cool. I would like to learn properly more. I'm not great at absorbing languages, but it's still a fun prospect. And yeah, I mean, you can definitely, as you learn it, you start to recognize the words around here, the place names in particular.
Absolutely.
They're like, oh, that has a native vibe to it. And one of the really cool things about up here in terms of North American indigenous language stuff is we have such a high density of different nations and different languages that are like wildly unrelated. Like the Pacific Northwest it's kind of funny how much the geology and the human topography of the Pacific Northwest is kind of the same, like a million tiny little different things all smooshed together. It's not one big block like out in the plains.
It's such a,
it's like so tiny and articulated and dense.
You know why?
Because of the fish.
Resources. You have a lot.
Well, and the topography. Yeah. The topography also has a lot to do with it.
The constant rain, the fish, wood. You had all the fuel and building material you could ever want, all the water you could ever want, and all the food right there. So these very rich nations, some of the Northwest Coast nations, the Kwakiutl is what they used to be called. I can't say the new name. Clear up to the Tlingit in Alaska, who are still a very strong people, but they're like not related to this Chinook jargon trade stuff at all. That's a whole different deal. We're talking mostly people from the whole Columbia Basin, the inland area, would trade with the people at the mouth of the Columbia and down the coast and up through the Puget Sound region. The Salish Sea was where this language was and is still there. So if I went up to Squim and said, Nika Mama Cloche Singa, somebody might actually let me in and say, there it is.
Yeah, I watched a really cool video a while back from a Native American researcher, historian dude, very adorable Southern accent. But he did a whole video on the Pacific Northwest and was talking about how wealthy the population was without even having to do like animal domestication or agriculture. And like apparently in anthropology, there's a giant asterisk in all the basic anthropology stuff about like you generally need agriculture and animal husbandry to develop certain kinds of class structures and et cetera, et cetera. And the reason the asterisk is there is because of the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is the thing that broke the mold so hard that they're like, well, I guess we have to put a big old caveat on that assertion because, yeah, the cedar and the salmon up here made it possible for a level of density and social stratification that like Europeans did not know was possible without, doing all the land stuff that Europeans do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure where else in the world that I think Japan maybe has that sort of in, old Japan. No, they did have farming a long time ago though. That's really interesting. But the coast, the reason that the natives had to have such a trade language is think about it. You're out there, you got all the animal products you want, but where are you going to get your carbohydrates? Humans need that stuff too. So what do? You trade with the Willamette Valley tribes and the Inland Empire tribes for tule root and acorns and camas and things like that. Now, back to sewing machines for a minute. Here you are at the dock in Seattle, and you go back and you tell your chieftain, hey, there's this new thing. There's this fast wheel needle. And I think that, you could really impress some people. So, of course, one of these things, the way the Northwest Coast tribes work, they're rich, right? They're going to have a sewing machine. All right, here it is. So you learn how to use it. Then it comes time to oil it. The Northwest Coast tribes were very rich in fish oil.
Oh. Oh.
There's even a little fish called ulichan, candlefish, that when you dry it, you can use it for a candle. It's so oily. This is one of the main things that the coastal tribes traded with the inland tribes, was this really rich, oily fish.
Right, because that's what they needed, was that good, oily protein magic.
Oh, yeah. So I'm thinking, did anybody ever try to oil a sewing machine with fish oil?
Just squeeze a fish over it.
Well, good grief.
I mean, whale oil was the thing.
Exactly.
And they're
whale
just
oil.
big fish. I mean, they're not fish, but don't at me.
Right. That we're talking simple working people here. Wow, I need to oil it. I don't want to get in my canoe and go all the way back down to Seattle to get some Singa oil. And there's a word for oil too, but I can't remember what it is right now. Probably oil.
Oh.
No, they probably had a word for it. But anyway, when I was thinking about when machinery makes its way into places that haven't seen machinery before, a lot of times the maintenance is what winds up killing it, because the salesman sold the guy the machine, but he's not there for service after the sale, right?
Right.
So I myself have never seen a machine oiled with fish oil, but I have seen, let me tell you, machines oiled with, of course, old spermaceti, because that was available up for quite a long time. Vegetable oil, 3-in-1 oil, WD-40, peanut oil. I've cleaned high temperature brake goo out of gears. I mean, people have put all kinds of things in their sewing machine because they're on some level aware that it needs lubrication. What do I have here at the house?
Peanut oil. WD-40 is not even an oil.
No, WD-40 is an unlocker. And even then, it's not my favorite one to use on sewing machines because it can do weird things to the finishes if you're not careful. The only oil you should ever use on a sewing machine is sewing machine oil or gun oil, because they're the same thing. Really fine oil for critical small metal moving parts. In fact, many sewing machine manufacturers got their start making guns. Husqvarna in Sweden was a firearm manufacturer before they ever got into sewing machines. The world and how it works. Lubrication, metal parts. We need more clothes.
Language. The language of adopting new technology. I remember you told me a long time ago that Icelandic is super locked in with like what their language is. So they had to make like a really long compound word to describe computers because they couldn't actually make a new word. So it's like a phrase of old words put together that like you could have just said computer, but
exactly like this, fast wheel needle. Okay, so what is a computer? It's a plastic brain air think. I don't know.
Magic rocks that do math.
Well, that's another thing. Iceland, what would they call a sewing machine? Because they're still like that. There's a list of things. There's a list of approved names for your kids. Elon wouldn't get away with naming his kids mathematical equations over there. But yeah, I said, look at that Icelandic. That's a real fun pronunciation. Here's my best Icelandic. Name of a volcano, Eyjafjallajökull. Terrible. You have to spit outside of your mouth to do it right. But yeah, what do Icelanders, when the sewing machine came to Iceland, what was it called? Join us next time on Used to Sew for more arcane and weirdly interesting stuff from the world of sewing. Stay threaded.
And there you have it. Some Pacific Northwest regional lore related to the language, economics, and technology of the 19th century. We speculated, imagined, and traded information we have acquired about the history of our home region before and after colonial contact. As always, through the lens of sewing machines, because that is how this podcast makes sense of the world. The Pacific Northwest is a very interesting place to learn about. I'm glad I get to live here and apply what I know to the world just outside my window. And I would be remiss if I didn't spend a little time acknowledging the indigenous people who have been living here this whole entire time. TR and I are recording from locations in the traditional lands of the Kalapuya and Siuslaw in the southern part of the Pacific Northwest region. As I mentioned in this episode, the wealth and linguistic diversity of this region is unparalleled, and so it would make sense to me that there were probably multiple variations on a trade language before Europeans showed up. But according to Wikipedia, there is still scholarly debate about how much that is true or how much that contributed to the Chinuk Wawa we have today. It is worth mentioning, though, that the language Chinuk is distinct and unrelated to Chinuk Wawa because Cross-cultural naming schemes frequently don't make sense, as we covered with some of the vocabulary in this episode. There is currently actually a Chinuk Wawa revival here in this region, with classes being offered at different education levels to kids and adults alike, even at local community colleges. It might not be the original languages that have been lost through the process of colonialism, but it's something. It's more than nothing. Go out and learn a term today if you didn't learn anything new in what we already included in this episode. Report back in the comments what you've learned. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you. It's just a suggestion. For more information about the overlapping territories and language groups of Indigenous people all over the world, go to native-land.ca. Link will be in show notes. And explore the data there. It's a really interesting website and series of data sets, and it very well could prompt some Wikipedia rabbit holes for you to explore. Maybe, possibly. One last apology about the audio change you noticed probably around minute 10 or so. Your ears didn't trick you. That was an unfortunate mic unplug-replug situation that changed the settings in Audacity while she was recording. Alas, we just had to learn that lesson the hard way. Our quality will get better next week when we talk about a very specific sewing machine, the Davis Vertical Feed. As a reminder, we are unofficially sponsored by Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, who do repairs and restorations. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends, and also with money, at patreon.com/used2sew. Thank you for listening to us here at Used to Sew. We always welcome your additions, corrections, and feedback in general. Please reach out to us via email at usedtosew@gmail.com. Used to Sew is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.